Penguin here. Happy seeing you guys again. At the time of this recording, I just got back from FanX, and boy howdy was it fun. I always enjoy the opportunity to meet up with the flock and have a good time. If you missed the opportunity, don't worry. You can always get the chance to chat through our Discord chat streams. We'll leave a link in the description if you're interested. Full disclosure here, I have had a large number of theories bouncing around my head for the last little while, and we have an entire list that is many entries long on potential video concepts, but unfortunately most of them just aren't long enough or evidenced enough for a video of their own. Luckily though, one of the members of our Discord chat suggested making a hodgepodge video out of a few of them during our latest chat stream, so I think that we're gonna move forward with that today. We'll be going over a number of micro theories for the series as a whole. I hope you guys enjoy it, and if you do, make sure to let us know. It could end up being something that we do more of in the future if it does well. In addition to that, I've also been considering a new series concept in which I will review and critique theories put out by creators and the community as a whole. Got a theory that you want explored or critiqued? Make sure to join our Discord and leave your suggestions under the theory tab. I can't promise that I will add all suggestions to a video at some point, but I can promise to read all of them, and if it intrigues me, I'll let you know. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get into the topic at hand. Today's video will discuss a few points across the series that support the timeline we suggested in our first major video after the hiatus. That video is titled Tears of the Kingdom Fixes the Zelda Timeline. It proposes that Tears of the Kingdom retroactively changed the Zelda timeline, repositioning the Four Swords games, Minish Cap, the Downfall era games, and the Wild era games to fit on a new timeline that splits off of Skyward Sword. If you haven't seen that video yet, you should definitely give it a watch. It's a real fun one. But to clarify how it works in short order, the new timeline starts with Skyward Sword, then goes to the past era of Tears of the Kingdom to form Hyrule, then it follows up with Minish Cap, Four Swords and Four Swords Adventures, A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening and the Oracle games, A Link Between Worlds, Triforce Heroes, Echoes of Wisdom, Zeldas 1 and 2, and then ending with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. This means that the other timelines go from Skyward Sword to Ocarina of Time, and then the child and adult eras as they already appear in the official timeline, with the only change being that Four Swords Adventures is now no longer on the child timeline. With that established, today's video will be bringing up a number of micro theories that flesh out this general layout for the timelines. I know that some of you guys are probably already sick of hearing me talking about the timeline split theory, but there's a lot of potential evidence for it outside of just Skyward Sword and Tears of the Kingdom, and I can't just forget to mention it ever. So today, we're going to be diving into a few of the potential evidences across the entire series that point to this interpretation of the timeline. Let's get into the first micro theory. Many fans, I'm sure, are aware of the Hylian shield, a shield first introduced in Ocarina of Time that has since become a staple of Link's design across the entire series. It's a strong shield, near unbeatable in its quality and craftsmanship. In many of the recent games, it represents the pinnacle of Link's defensive toolkit, being the only unbreakable shield in Skyward Sword, and a nearly unbreakable shield in the Wild era games. It appears in a very large number of games, but it's more common in some branches of the timeline than it is in others. Why is that? Well, let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. The shield's first appearance in-universe is in Skyward Sword, where it's introduced as a legendary shield of peerless quality. It's given to Link by the Thunder Dragon after Link proves himself a true champion by beating 8 bosses in a row with no access to pouch items like potions and fairies. This establishes it as an item with a status nearly as legendary as the Master Sword itself, but this status is also not so consistent across the series. You'll find that the three timelines treat this shield very differently from one another. The Child era games and Ocarina of Time show it as a purchasable item, a sturdy tool, and I mean, yeah, sure, it's one that's great, but it's also one that's fairly common across the realm, probably even standard for adventuring types. It can be stolen by likes and repurchased in some of these games, but in none of these games is it a legendary artifact. The adult era doesn't actually even have the Hylian shield at all. The mirror shield of Wind Waker is similar in design, but not one-to-one, and it doesn't show up in either of the game's 2 follow-ups. Consistently, however, if it ever shows up in the Downfall timeline or Wild Era games, it has a legendary status, or is found in only the late game. A Link Between Worlds even goes so far as to make it the item of the last dungeon. The only exception is Echoes of Wisdom. We don't actually know how Link acquires the shield in this game, as we only get to play as him very, very close to the end of his journey, and he already has it by that point, along with like 1 billion hearts. So yeah, that said, it isn't sold in shops, and the only character that has it is Link, or I guess Zelda as well in her Link form. So I'm willing to assume it's still the special version of the shield and not like the sold normal version we see from Ocarina of Time. While it is purchasable in the Wild Era games, it's something that you can only purchase from merchants who have access to legendary equipment, like the Fierce Deity's armor. And they only have given you the ability to buy it after you've actually broken it. Clearly, the appearances of the shield are treated quite differently across the series, so why would that be the case? Well, if Skyward Sword does in fact split the timeline, and make it look like the version I put forward at the beginning of this video, this actually makes a lot of sense. Skyward Sword Link canonically has the shield at the end of the game, so when he finishes his quest and goes back to normal living, it's something that he'd still have on him. As the people of Skyloft begin moving down to the surface, they would need to make tools to defend themselves. Using Link's shield as a basis to work off of, they could have crafted a large number of similar shields, leading to an increase in the commonality of both the design and the quality, but a loss in legendary status and artifact whatever because none of them actually knew the origin. Link, after all, is not very chatty and probably did not tell them. This accounts for Ocarina of Time's appearance of the shield, as one that is unburnable and indestructible, but definitely not infallible as it can be taken by like-likes. The Child Era never sees a calamity grand enough to set technology or culture back a significant amount of time, so its inclusion in Twilight Princess makes a ton of sense as well. The Adult Era does see an apocalyptic event that floods the entirety of Hyrule. Their technology level has maintained the ability to forge shields of incredible durability, but has not maintained much of the past's cultural flourishes as a result of the destruction of and forgetting of Hyrule as a whole. So the shields being tough in this era also makes sense, as does the lack of the iconic design. But now we get to the Downfall timeline. If the Downfall timeline takes place after Ocarina of Time, then it doesn't make too much sense that the shield would disappear for most of these games, or that it would maintain a legendary status in the ones it does show up for. After all, it was an incredibly common item in Ocarina of Time, and Link wouldn't be seen as a legendary hero if he fell after his fight with Ganon. So either the shield should remain common, or it should fall out of use as the calamity that follows Ganon's reign either causes the information on its creation to become lost, or to cause it to fall out of cultural fame. However, if the Downfall era stems from Skyward Sword, this actually makes a lot more sense. The Hylian shield would remain a singular legendary artifact that belongs to the Thunder Dragon, one that may have been given to a legendary hero or the royal family instead of just the Link from Skyward Sword. Or perhaps it was found millennia later as an artifact. In such a case as this, the Hylian shield is not used as the base for creating new shields, largely because it would be seen not as a pretty cool and powerful shield wielded by Link, but as a sacred and legendary relic. Remember, on Skyloft, Link isn't really seen as a legendary hero. Most of the people from Skyloft don't actually know what Link is up to down there. He's not seen as the great hero of the sky in the beginning. He's seen as like Steve from down the block. His shield being cool is notable for no reason other than the fact that it has cool properties. So if he's cool with it, I wouldn't be surprised if a local blacksmith, say this guy, asked if he could tinker with it. In an era where its last owner was the royal family or the Thunder Dragon though, yeah, good luck getting that thing out of its chest, because that place is going to be heavily guarded. And we can see that this continues to be the case all the way up until the Wild Era. cool to see how consistent this ends up being. Alright, time for the next theory. This one will address the potential origins of the Zonai. As I'm sure you're all aware, the Zonai are seen as an ancient, godlike, dragon-goat race that inhabits the skies above and the depths beneath Hyrule. One of them, Rauru, even claims to be the king that founded the nation. Their architecture on the surface depicts boars, owls, and dragons, animals that seem to represent power, wisdom, and courage. The three virtues of the Triforce. Their architecture above the clouds places a heavy emphasis on Zen. They are quite the interesting race with a ton of lore that I really don't have the time to get into, watch Celtic. They're really cool. Anyways, but where do they come from? Well, it seems likely to me that they exist on this timeline uniquely as a result of some fairly interesting developments. First, let's establish that the three dragons of the Wild Era, Dinral, Farosh, and Naydra, are named after the Golden Goddesses as well as the main areas that they inhabit, the El Din region, the Faron wetlands, and the Lanayru province. And it is extremely likely that they were once Zonai, as Link can find clothes reminiscent of them in secret locations across each of these regions. It's also important to note that the Zonai are only hinted at in the Wild Era games. This may be consistent with the official timeline, as the Wild Era takes place incredibly long after the other games in the series, but I also have a potential other explanation for them as well. The only other game in the series featuring multiple sacred dragons of light and goodness is Skyward Sword. Wind Waker does have Valu, but he's likely more related to the evil dragon Volvagia, as seen through his name and general design similarities. Anyways, back to the point. The three dragons of Skyward Sword bear striking similarities to the dragons of the Wild Era. Their names are similar, the music associated with them is similar, and these dragons are the first time the elemental trio of fire, water, and electricity were shown as a prominent trio together. Unless you count the light arrows as lightning arrows in, like, Ocarina of Time, which, no. Anyways, personally, I think that the dragons in Skyward Sword might be the distant ancestors of the Zonai. They're all intelligent elemental dragons, depicted as minor deities that speak for the goddess Hylian. They fit in very well with Rauru and his people. That said, if these dragons are the ancestors of the Zonai, then where are either the dragons or the Zonai in the entire majority of the three timelines? Well, if my theory about the split is correct, as well as the placement of these games, there's something that the three dragons have on this split of the timeline that they wouldn't have in the Ocarina Time branch. Pre-time. You see, in Skyward Sword, these dragons spend most of their lives protecting and guarding their regions from the powers of demise, and waiting for a hero to arrive and learn their songs. If the timeline split with Demise's defeat happens, however, then the dragons would have a heck of a lot more free time now. And people with free time find ways to fill it, wink wink. Anyway, sorry. It's possibly the case that the dragons of Skyward Sword were only able to leave descendants on this new timeline, and that's the reason the Zonai aren't present in the other two timelines. Though, to be fair, this also doesn't explain the lack of Zonai influence in the rest of the Downfall timeline. That's completely 100% okay though, because it is explained by the placement of Tears of the Kingdom's past era on this new timeline. After all, it's probable that they were already extinct by the time of the Minish Cap, as we never see a living Zonai who isn't a mindless dragon even in the Wild Era. They're only ever seen in the past era, which if that takes place here, then their dwindling numbers would lead to a less full presence of them throughout the rest of this timeline. Due to their long lifespan and high quality of individuals born, it's likely that they have not only a long lifespan but also a long gestational period, meaning that they won't be able to have kids quickly, and if this happens shortly after Skyward Sword, then it would make sense that there wouldn't be a lot of them, and that if their numbers were to die down, that you wouldn't be able to see the numbers that you would expect to see throughout the rest of the series. Alright, now for one final theory. Let's discuss one little oddity about Zelda 2. If my theory about the timeline split is correct, it does leave one little hole in Zelda 2, which is a really weird game to have a plot hole in, seeing as it doesn't really even have a plot. The plot is the whole. But regardless, let's get into it. You see, the names of the towns in Zelda 2 are mostly named after the sages of Ocarina of Time. Saria Town, Rudo Town, etc. If Tears of the Kingdom's past does take the new spot as the imprisoning war, as that one video I made suggests, then that would not explain how these towns get their names. That said, these towns already don't line up with one of the names in the sages. In Zelda 2, we don't have a town named after Impa, instead getting one named after Mido. Mido isn't a sage in Ocarina of Time, though he is a fairly important member of the Kokiri who is jealous of Link and his sword. Age of Imprisonment hasn't come out yet at the time of this recording, so this is purely speculation, mind you. That said, my theory would hold a heck of a lot of water if the ancient sages of Tears of the Kingdom's past era ended up being named after the sages of Ocarina of Time. Obviously, we already have Rauru, so yeah. If this one was Rudo, and this one Naburu, and this Korok named after either Saria or Mido, then that would mean a heck of a lot of good things for that theory. Especially if there ends up being a character named Kazuto, which happens to be another town from Zelda 2 that doesn't have a sage or even character associated with them. Being completely honest here, I would be very shocked if this ends up being the case, but if it does, I hit the nail on the head and my theory is canon. Alright, that's gonna do it for today's theories. I hope that you enjoyed the video today. Huge thanks to Exon from the Discord for suggesting it. This video wouldn't exist without you. Today's video was a lot of fun to make. I don't know how well any of it will pan out in the long run, especially with the algorithm, but hey, that's a part of the gig as a theorist. Hopefully you guys had fun whether or not you bought into the ideas presented. Huge thanks to our editor, The Flock, and our channel member, Berber0555 as well. If you would like to support the channel like these fine individuals, make sure to join the Discord for live chats and discussions, as well as opportunities to talk about your favorite theories and projects. You might also consider potentially becoming a channel member or subscriber, or perhaps a liker and hyper of this video. As always, I look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments and on the Discord. But until then, this is Outcast Penguin, signing off.